Welcome to Hope is Here, bringing hope to those struggling with life's difficult situations.
Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is GregJHorn, and we are broadcasting live from Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Christian Product Expo Conference. People from all over the country here, retailers, and lots of wonderful authors of new books. And we are blessed today to be talking with the author of a book that just won the Nonfiction Book of the Year here at the CPA. And the name of the book is Uncomplicated, Simple Secrets for a Compelling Life, and the author is Brenda Yoder. Brenda, thanks for being on Hope is Here, and congratulations on this award that just happened within the last hour.
It did. Thank you so much. I'm thrilled at this award. I'm very humbled, but very excited.
Well, I love the title of your book, because I know that even though I've been a follower of Jesus over 40 years, I make things really, really complicated. And your background as a counselor, a speaker, an author, and an educated, have you found that to be true, too, that we just make it life too complicated?
Yes, I have. Sometimes I think as an educator and as a counselor, I really just kind of feel like, just pause. It doesn't have to be that messy. Life is messy, but our response to it does not have to be so debilitating, which is what I feel like our culture today has really come to a place where we just don't know how to respond to life's interruptions and life's pain, and really just life in itself. We have forgotten how to just really do the next thing and take the next step forward.
Well, got to ask you, what actually inspired you to write this book, Uncomplicated?
Yeah, probably about three things. One is that before the pandemic in the counseling office, I really started realizing that people had really defaulted to either fatalistic or idealistic views. That really a lot of people were having a hard time coming to that kind of centered thinking or balanced thinking. So that was one thing. Another thing is that we live in a community. I live in an Amish Mennonite community in Shipshewana, Indiana. It's a large tourist area. We just won Midwest Tourist Destination of the Year. But people come to this area because they're seeking kind of this more peaceful, simpler life that they only think exists in the Amish. And living as a farmer's wife, but being in the secular culture, working in larger cities, I know that life doesn't have to be a horse and buggy in order to have just a less hurried, less complicated life. And so, part of it is just conversations with people and understanding you don't have to adapt this very different lifestyle. We can have it in our own modern culture because it's what I live, it's what our family lives. And probably the last thing was the pandemic. When everything shut down, I looked around me, and when everyone else, or even the government, whether it was the government, the culture, the distribution centers, forgot how to just go from point A to point B, and everyone was so dysregulated and chaotic, my community still was going forward. And I think just those simple rhythms of knowing in the spring, the pandemic happened in March. Our family is a family farm. And just knowing that no matter what was going on outside, it was still spring. And we still got the tractors out. We still put seeds in the ground. The birds were still fed by God every day. And it was kind of these natural rhythms that made me realize, no matter what comes at us, we still as humans have the capacity to take the next step forward. And that hasn't changed no matter what generation we live in. So really it was a kind of a perfect storm of all of those things coming together. And then finally, probably the last thing was a guest who stayed at our Airbnb in our home was leaving one time, and they said, "You're so rich, I envy you." And I looked around and I thought, I'm not so rich. We're just regular, normal a Midwest family in a rural area. And it was then that I realized that maybe we had something that other people really craved and needed. And so Uncomplicated really evolved out of recognizing this need that people had to really know how to have a little bit more common sense approach to life, that was present in past generations, but we kind of have forgotten how to do.
Well, that's so good. And as you were sitting there sharing, it just made me think, our world and social media and all makes it look like if you're rich on the external with all those things we see externally, then you'll have peace and life will be good. But really, it sounds like to me, when that person said you were rich, they were looking at internally. Is that your observation there?
I think internally, but maybe just way of life. Like, that there's something about that less complicated, more maybe old-fashioned way of life that if we are caught up in modern culture, we say that can't be relevant today because it's outdated or it's not as hip, it's not as flashy. When really, again, it's kind of that middle lane. We tend to look at the fast lane, we tend to look at the slow lane, and really most of life happens in that steady middle lane, and I use this analogy in the book of it really doesn't matter if you're in the slow lane, you're gonna have problems. If you're in the fast lane, you're gonna have problems. But if you stay in that steady middle lane, you still get to your destination about the same time, and you're not worried about accidents. You're not worried about who am I gonna cut off, or you can actually enjoy the ride. And I wonder if that maybe is what we need to reinvent in our life or to reintroduce into our life, is just a less complicated approach to everything in life.
Such good wisdom there. With your counseling background, in all that you've had, education plus with meeting with clients, does that influence some of the advice that you share in the book with your readers?
Yeah, it does. I think I did an interview a while ago, and the person just thought that I was just like a farmer's wife living in Amish country, and what type of relevancy would that relate to the suburban mom or the urban, family or the professional person? And it really informs all of that because our relationships, our internal systems are really driven by what we value. And the book really is more about setting the reader down and thinking about values clarification, and to be really thinking about what we do today impacts not only our sphere of life today, but it also impacts tomorrow. And the last chapter really is on legacy and heritage and how what we're doing today impacts the next generation. And just kind of reintroducing skills like practicality, contentment. Discontentment drives a lot of our very messed up behaviors or mindsets. It really does help. My counseling background really addresses a lot of the anxiety and depression that is epidemic right now because as we learned how to train our minds for how we approach things, and the 10 virtues that I set out in the book really are basic human life skills. They're some of the basic principles that probably 30 to 40 years ago were still embedded in the culture. And so we didn't have to think so hard. We didn't have to respond so sporadically. We didn't have to dysregulate all the time or be overwhelmed. But really things such as fidelity, stewardship, contentment, practicality, prudence in the respect of everything has a cause and effect. And just kind of looking at what is most important and how we live out of what we value, and just pausing. A lot of the book is just about pausing. Just pause a moment, take a breath, think. And then at the end of every chapter, there's a section called Simple Secrets, which includes about 10 simple steps. And it's a wide variety of things that anyone, no matter where they live, no matter what their interests are, can pick up and do today that helps them have a less complicated life related to that virtue or to that mindset. And then at the end of every chapter, there's 4 reflection questions that really help us think about who do we admire, who do we look to that we would like to be like as it pertains to this subject, like contentment? Who in our life emulates contentment that we would really like to put in our life? And then to think about those qualities, and then how do we put those qualities in our life? And it also is about helping the reader realize the impact that we have on other people around us. And it really is encouraging each of us to uncomplicate our own value of what we bring to every situation we're in. Each of us as Jesus followers impact other people. And we want to make sure that we are impacting, and we know the powerful impact we have, no matter where we are, if it's at the drive-thru at McDonald's, if it's at the ball game, if it is at work, if it's within our family. But all of us have a powerful influence, and it doesn't have to be complicated. It's just as simple as realizing that when we bring the presence of Christ into whatever environment we're in those daily, ordinary moments, the powerful impact that they have on other people.
Well, one of the things that I'm learning, want to see if from your being an educator and a counselor, I'm learning to me that more is caught than taught. Are you seeing that with people?
Yes. In fact, what we see, and when we think about the amount of images that our eyes see now through social media and through videos, through Google, through everything, those sites leave impressions upon our brain. And that's what our brain draws from. When we're scared, when we feel overwhelmed, we draw from those visual images. So the reason that living in an Amish community is so powerful, and why people come visit my Amish community, is because they visually see these people living life today, 2024, but in a more grounded, sustainable way than the chaos around them. And so what we visually see, what we live in our daily life, really impacts us much more than what we read or what we theorize. There's a lot of theorizing about things right today, right? When really the uncomplicated life really is about doing. It's about problems here. We have the capacity to figure it out, believe it or not. Our life experiences, our training, everything that we individually bring to a situation, God has already foreplanned, put it in our DNA. We have the capacity to problem solve. And that's one of the biggest, I think, underlying themes of this book is problem solving. We all have the capacity to problem solve no matter what it is. And there's a lot of stories of just how to do that, practical ways of just taking the next step.
Wow, such good stuff from Brenda Yoder. We're talking about her wonderful new book, Uncomplicated, Simple Secrets for a Compelling Life. She shares 10 timeless virtues, mindsets, and behaviors drawn from past generations to overcome practical obstacles and solve our daily challenges with a calm presence, an authentic faith, and a voice for reason. And she's got a really, really great website, BrendaYoder.com. Really want to encourage you to check that out. Brenda, if somebody wants to get a copy of this wonderful book, what's the best way to do that?
They can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, their local bookseller. It's around. It's in physical bookstores. Ask for it at your library, but probably Amazon's the easiest place to get it.
Well, I want to encourage you to get a copy of that. The good news is Brenda's going to be back with us for another program. She has traveled internationally, and she's going to share some things from out of all places, India, that she's learned that can help us to have a more uncomplicated life and learn how to be content. Lots of scripture. She incorporates scripture throughout the book and bases that for everything with these virtues. So if you've been blessed by this program, I hope you'll share it with somebody else. But I hope you'll join us again tomorrow as we continue our conversation with author and speaker Brenda Yoder about her wonderful book, Uncomplicated, Simple Secrets for a Compelling Life on Hope is Here.
Thank you for listening to Hope is Here podcast. To listen to one of our our previous programs or to make a tax-deductible donation, please go to our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today.
Are you ready to break out of the monotony of the mundane and the mediocre? I am Tommy Lanham, and I am leading the Enthusiasm Experience Retreat in Lexington, Kentucky, September 6th through 8th, with special guest GregJHorn from Hope is Here. Are you ready to break through to your enthusiasm zone? For more information, visit theenthusiasmzone.com. That is theenthusiasmzone.com.
I no longer have an excuse to say, I don't know what I want to do, because I know exactly what I want to do.
Here we go.